Hey everybody, so welcome back to my channel. In an earlier video, I showed you guys how to get started with the FastAPI library. Recall that in an earlier video, we were just doing the fundamentals of FastAPI. More specifically, you guys learned about enums. You guys also learned about filter parameters or query parameters. Furthermore, you guys also learned about request bodies. Today, we're going to take it a step further. Today, as the title of this video suggests, you guys are going to learn about request fields or request body fields, integrating nested models within your request body. Furthermore, you guys are going to learn also about response models. So let's get started. So for the first part of this video, I want to focus on adding metadata to our path parameter. In an earlier video, we did not do this, so I'm going to show it to you how we can do this. So for example, here we have in our code, we have name path param as our query parameter. So to add metadata, we're going to go annotate it, and then we can add it like so. So it's of type string, and this time it's not a query. This time it's a path. So here I go path. Looks like I would need to import it. We're going to import it later on. So we have assistance from AI, and yeah, I want to import it from FastAPI. Anyways, so then we can have a title. And the name here is going to be new name, no, not new name, name to print out, comma, and then we can have a maximum length. So basically the maximum length of our path parameter. Here I'm going to set it to 50. And then I end it via this square bracket. So now I would need to run it. So before running it, I'll create a new Git branch. Let's call it part 2. And since I have a dev container, I would also need to fire up my dev container. So I go rebuild and reopen in container. Okay, so now that I'm in my dev container here, let's now test out this feature. So I think first of all, I have to initialize my conda environment. So I conda init and then reopen your current shell. So I'll reopen my shell. Okay, so now it's activated. Let me clear it. And then here I go FastAPI dev. So now it seems to be running. So I'll follow this link. And this time let's go to the docs directory like so. So now this time, let's see if our name path param endpoint has our metadata. Great. So as you can see, we now have a max length or a constraint of max length set to 50. So here I would prefer to use my API client. So I'll open VS Code once again and I'll use Thunder client. Let's create a new request. Let me zoom in a bit here and then close this like so. And then let me enter my API endpoint here, which was 8,000 and then slash. And then names. So let's see how many names we have. We have the following names. And then here, let me add the name path param parameter or the path parameter. So let's add my name first. And then I send, and let's see what comes up as a response. So scrolling down here, as you can see, the path param shows up just fine. However, we have a max length of 50. So let's test this out. So let's add Hussein 10 times basically, or multiple times. Let's hit send again, and hopefully we should get an error coming up. Okay, so as you can see, as soon as I click send, we now have an error saying that the string should be at most 50 characters. That means that our code worked. Similarly, we can take it a big step further. I can even use a regex or a regular expression to check if the name or the string is actually a name. To do so, here I can go pattern. So I think I would need to add R here and then a cap or whatever you call it, A to Z and then A to Z plus $sign. So basically here I'm saying that the first letter or the first character of the name should be a capital letter. So let's test this out. So within my API client, let's remove all of this and let's hit send. Okay, it seems to be working just fine. Let's do H as a small letter. And let's hit send. Hopefully we should get an error this time. Great. So as you can see, our validation for our path parameter is working just fine. Let's now move on. Similarly, as discussed earlier, according to FastAPI, you can also add validation within your request body. So let's do so now. So I believe we have a post request that uses my person model. So we can add the same regular expression to our person model. To do so, here I can go name of type str and field and then title equals. So for the metadata, we can go name of the member, comma, and then max length can be 50, comma, and then again we can set a pattern. Let me just copy the code from below, copy this code like so, and we paste it here. So I would need to update my import. So I import from Pydantic. Okay, so now that it's saved, let's test it out. So within my API client, I believe we had the post request to names. Yeah. And then let's set a body. Do we have a body here? We do not have a body. So the name, so let's test it out by setting a small h, and then we can set an age, let's say to 50, and let's see what happens. Oops, looks like I need to add a post request and then send. So as you can see, we now have an error. So let's change it to h as in capital, and then I send, and then now it worked just fine. Let me do a get request and see if my item was successfully added. And if I scroll down, yeah, it's added. We can add another validation step. So I want a validation step on my age field. So here I go, field, title, age of the member. And then here we have two validation checks, which means greater than or equals to, or lesser than or equals to. I'm gonna have to change it here. So let's add it greater than, not equals to. So I want my age to be greater than 17, and I want it to be lesser than 100. So now let's go back to my API client, and first let's set an age of 0. Let's see what happens. So I do a post request, send, and I should get an error like so. Let's set it to 18 and then send again. So it seems to be added just fine. That means that our code works. Furthermore, thanks to FastAPI, we also have support for nested models. If you don't know what nested models mean, basically within the request body, you can have nested JSON items. So for example, here I have name and age, and then within this JSON object, I can have something like user info, and then I don't know, family name or something like that. So yeah, thanks to FastAPI, we can support a feature just like this. So here I'm going to have to add another piece of code. Let's scroll all the way down. Let me create a new line. So what I want here is to have a class of laptop to represent a laptop item, obviously, of type base model, and then brand string model of type string. And this time I don't want price to be a float value, rather I want it to be a nested model. We can do so like so. So class laptop price of type base model, and I want two kinds of prices here. So a base price of the laptop, so the minimal configuration of that laptop, which is of type float, equals field title base price of the laptop, and it's going to be greater than, let's say, 100 comma, and I want the base price to be lesser than 1000. And then we can have something called top price. So basically the most expensive item or the most expensive config of that laptop float equals field title top price of that laptop, and I want it to be greater than 1000 and lesser than 5000. And then naturally within my laptop class here, I can set price to be of type laptop price. That's it. So I want to create an endpoint for this. To do so, here I go app.post, whoops, it's and not hash, /laptop /async def add laptop, and then as a request body it's going to accept laptop of type laptop, and then I want to create an array, so I'm going to do so now. So laptops square bracket, and then laptops.append laptop.model underscore dump, and then here I can do a get request to get all items within this array /laptop, and then yeah, thank you GitHub Copilot. So let's test it out. So let's do laptop, then let me remove all of this. So here we had a name, if I believe correctly, it's actually brand. So let's set brand to framework, comma, model. Let's set it to laptop 16, and then it should have a price field, which is again a nested model, which is base price. So base price, and we already have constraints. I don't want to test it out once again, but if you want to test it out, you're welcome to test it out. And let's set it to greater than, not greater than, let's set it equals to 500 comma top price. Let's set it to 3000, and then let's add it. Great. So as you can see, our code works. Let's add one more. So Apple MacBook Neo base price is $599. Top price, let's set it to $799. Let's send it. Looks like we hit an error here. Oh yeah, obviously that's because top price has a constraint. It should be more than 1000. So let's set it to $17.99 and let's send it. Okay, so now it's added. Let's do a get request and let's see what we have. So as you can see, we now have 2 laptops or 2 items within our laptop array. We can take it a step further. So for example, according to the documentation, we can declare lists as well. So let's do so now. So I'm going to create another type of code or another code snippet here. So let's go class K-pop group, not K-pop group. I think we've already defined it. So let's call it band with members type base model. And here let's set band underscore name type string and then members. So basically I want members to be of type list, and the list type, if we scroll up, I want it to be of type person. So here it's gonna go type of person, and then here I go bands empty array. So basically the same thing as before. So app.post bands, and then basically whatever this code's doing. Here it's appending the request body, which is of type band with members, and then returning a message. Furthermore, let's do the same with the get request slash bands slash, and then we get the bands like so. Or if we want, we can even get the length of the members array. So here we can go members list len band dot members. Members is already an array. And then here I can go with, set an F here, members list. Members list is not a good name. Let's change it. So members length. So let's test it out. Let me go back to my API client, and it was bands. If I'm correct, yes, it was bands. Do a post request. Let me remove this like so. So here we have band name, and let's add the name to one of my favorite childhood bands, the script, comma, and then members. It was a nested object. So if I recall correctly, the first name is Danny. Oh, actually it was an array. So let me wrap it in square brackets like so. Oh, don't know who, comma, age 40, comma, and then let's add another member. Let me just make it a bit bigger. Whoops. Like so. And then name, Benjamin Sargent, comma, age. Let's set it to 50, comma, a comma here. And then let's add another person, name, Ben Weaver, comma, and let's set their age to 55. Let's run it and see what happens. Looks like we got an error here. That's mainly because of my regex expression. So I'll just change it to Danny here, Benjamin here, and remove Weaver here, like so. So let's run it. Okay, so as you can see, it's now been added. Let's add another one. So one of my favorite bands, One Republic. And for our members here, let's add Ryan Tedder. Okay, so it has to be only the first name according to my regex expression, Zach. And we can add group. Let's add another one just for fun. Name, Eddie, comma, age, and let's add it to 35. So we have an error here. I need to wrap it in curly braces here and here. Let's run it. Okay, so as you can see, it's now been added. Let's do a get request, and nice. So as you can see, our code works. So for the last segment of this video, I want to focus on response models. So previously we could set the type of our request body via fields. For the last segment of this video, I want to focus on response models. So previously we could set the model for our body, request body, and we could also set the model for query and our path parameters. Similarly, you can also set the model for your response or your API response. So let's do so now. So I want to add a response model to my laptop endpoint. So for example, here I'm returning a laptop. That's the most important part. And creating a response model is just like type hinting in Python. So here I just go arrow, and then this function just returns a response of type laptop. And then let's test it out. So I do a post request, and I already have some data. So I do a send, and here we have an error. So let's go back and see what the problem is. It took me a while to figure out why this is happening. Basically, my add laptop function returns a response where we have the message and laptop field. However, our function is just returning a response of type laptop. So basically, this function should return a JSON array of brand, model, and price. So we need to fix it. So instead of returning this response, I just return laptop. That's it. And then we can also do the same here. So get laptops returns a list of laptops. Whoops, let me remove this. This is not what we need. It's basically a list, and we set a list like so. and the list type should be laptop. And then I have to edit this function like so. So it just returns laptops. That's it. So now let's test it out. Let's do a post request, send. Let's add another one. So Apple MacBook Pro. Let's do a send again. So here we have a response of type laptop, and it exactly matches the response model. So this time let's do a get request and let's send, and let's see what we get. Great. So as you can see, we now have a response, and this response model is exactly of a list of type laptop. Okay, so according to the documentation here, we have another parameter called response model that's very similar to what we're doing here. So let's test it out. So here I'm gonna go response underscore model equals laptop, and here we want to set the type of this function to any. It's actually any, like so. And looks like I need to fix my imports. So here I go from typing import any. That's it. So let's scroll back down around here, and we can do the same like so. So response model, and it's list of laptop, and we set it to any, and the behavior should be very similar. So let's do a get request and expect it to be the same. Here it's empty because the server restarted. Let's do a push request 2 times. Yeah, it's basically working just like before. And some of you might be very curious on why do we have response model. The standard Python way of defining types is also very similar to this response model parameter, and actually the explanation is very well covered within the documentation. Here basically we're telling FastAPI that regardless whatever I return from this function, I wanna cast it to a laptop or any other type before returning it to the user. And here the biggest advantage is flexibility. It's useful for when you want to return a response or you want to return some data that's not exactly what the type declares. So for example, let's say you're returning a dictionary from a database, and there are some fields within that dictionary that you want to censor out. It can be any sensitive information. So for example, let's say your function returns a user DB object, basically the username and the password of a user. However, you don't want to return the user password to the client. Here, via response model, you can filter out the sensitive information. Now I understand it might be a bit confusing, so I request you guys to check the documentation or ask a large language model about the response model parameter in great detail. So moving on, FastAPI also supports a parameter called response model exclude. Here basically, as the name suggests, you can exclude certain fields from your response model. So let's use it. For example, when getting information about a certain laptop, I don't want the price. Here let's make another endpoint, app.get /laptop/ and then laptop underscore ID. So the ID of the laptop, and async def get laptop, and we already have some code here. So what's this code doing is it's just getting the item within my array of a certain index. So let's accept this code, and here it's going to return of type laptop. And since I don't want the price, here we can go response model equals, it's actually exclude, and here it's a curly bracket, and we don't want price. So let's test it out. I'll go back to my API client. Let's get a laptop of ID 0. Whoops, looks like we have an error here. Let's see why. So it's laptop ID out of range. Obviously, that's because there are no items within my laptop array. Let's add 2 of them. Do a get request and then 0 like so. Send. So here, as you can see, we don't have the price field. Let's remove it, and we should see a price field. Let me first post data. Oops, let me remove this and send, get, and then 0. So we should have price. So here this proves that our parameter works. Let's set it back. Response model excludes and price here again. Furthermore, moving on, we also have the section for response model priority. Basically, this means that if we set the return type in a Pythonic way, and we also have a response model parameter, the response model parameter will be first priority. So we can test it like so. I create another class and let's call it laptop no price, and we can remove the price field like so. So response model is laptop no price and laptop here. Similarly, we can do the same thing here as well. laptop no price, and it returns laptop the Pythonic way. It's actually list of laptop no price, not no price. Sorry, AI is throwing me off. List of type laptop. So theoretically, according to FastAPI, I should see laptop no price come instead. So let's test it out. And I do a get request of all laptops, send. Okay, so my array is empty. Let's do a post. So here, as you can see, we don't have a price field. That means that our response model parameter took first priority. So let's do a get request. And similarly, we should not see the price. That's great. So as you can see, our code works. So that's it for today. In today's brief and short video, you guys learned about fields within your request body. Furthermore, you guys learned about nested models within FastAPI. And later on, you guys also learned about response models. That's it for today. If you guys have any questions, feedback, or opinions, let me know within the comment section. Till then, see you later and bye bye.